Well, I think for me, looking, because this has been a very international based launch a little bit. So, like I mentioned, there was a factory in China, a company in India, and understanding that whatever you think is going to be the expectation when you're working across cultures, uh, be prepared for different um, situations or different ways of doing things than you've ever been maybe exposed to in the past. So ultimately, I would just say, like, if you're doing business internationally, you need to be very much in control of where the contracted money is being stored.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Founder. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Branden Cobb. And Branden, we're going to be talking about his founding journey, where he started out consulting, or started consulting when he had the experience and was taking some jobs with startups, and then realized needed a higher level of finance degree or financial experience and to be effective. So once he realized that, he went out, got that experience, started doing CFO services fractionally, and continues to grow that, as well as continuing to do some consultation and spark ideas for new models. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Branden.
Yeah, thanks, Devin. Glad to be here again.
Hey, excited to have you on. And just for those that didn't catch it, Branden has been on a couple of our sister podcasts, both The Inventive Journey and The Inventive Expert. So definitely encourage you to go and check out both of those episodes to find out a little bit more about Branden. But so now, as we're kind of diving into how you got the current business going, how you got it set up, how you came up with it, kind of walk us through how, set us up. You were kind of started out doing consulting and taking some jobs with startups kind of as you were getting in preparation, or at least in anticipation of starting this business. So walk us through that a bit.
Yeah, so once the coronavirus hit the world, the economy changed, work environments changed. Everybody knows that. So what that meant was change in opportunity and change in capabilities of businesses. So basically, I spotted those adjusted needs of businesses. And as you mentioned, I went out, you said CFO, which I mean, I'm very close in providing, focused on revenue growth and profitability, but it's really through marketing. So like kind of fractionalized marketing services. But with that, I was helping some venture capital backed startups, a very well established 20-year factory back in China that was coming into the market here with some of its own products, a new brands and things. So I was helping some of these, I guess you could say, startups. But what I really spotted was as the world changed, was that there was an adjusted needs of businesses. And I found a way to meet those needs while providing benefits to me and also providing benefits to the company. And some of those, I guess, are the flexibility. So, companies like to have the flexibility of shifting or pivoting or adjusting quickly, especially when they're starting a new initiative. I like to have the flexibility of, being more diverse, of learning across multiple clients and opportunities, and not really being bound by any one company's I guess bumpers or guidelines. But then also for companies, they get more experienced support than maybe they could afford in-house. So the idea of fractionalized services, I think, really also plays on the fact that we're working in a virtual work environment now. So you have the virtual work environment, economy's changing, pressures on financials, and people needing to find ways to continue to have the support, continue to launch products or grow their revenue, but maybe not with a full-time in-house person. And that's where I came in and kind of met that need.
So no, and that definitely sounds like a great need to meet, and makes perfect sense. Now, walking or rewinding it just a little bit, so walk us through. So certainly all of these things are going on in the in the foreground or the background, and impactful with COVID and some of the remote working changes and whatnot. Now, kind of, or at this time, where were you at? I think you were working for some startups, doing some consulting work and kind of getting that up and going before you decided to make the leap to your own or your current business and get that started. But kind of set us a little bit of the stages to what you were doing at the time, just prior to the founding of this business.
Yeah, about 5 years, I was in-house of a real estate company running their marketing, and they were acquired during COVID. Company that acquired them put me in a leadership role, and I'm working across the company. So I was in a very stable situation in-house of a place, but then ultimately just spotted the opportunity. It was a close jump. So it was leaving this in-house of an established traditional real estate brokerage to go to a startup, venture capital backed startup of a company in the real estate space. A different play on real estate altogether. Their business model completely different, but ultimately what it was still in the same industry. So it was just a slight movement over there. And then this is where I spotted that I guess companies, especially startups, are not necessarily, number one, whether they're financially capable of having people in-house full-time. They may not have a need yet until they get really up and going to have high caliber people in-house all the time. They may just have temporary needs of things. And so going in and helping them set up their infrastructure and really setting them on the right path. And then that just led to the future opportunities. Like I said, there was a factory. There was also a company from India that I was helping bring into the U.S. market. So there's been and then a variety of locally U.S.-based companies that have helped expand their products across the United States, and in some cases going outside the United States. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say, is that it's just going from in-house to out-of-house and just spotting the fact that that there's not always a long-term full-time need for some of the marketing services.
So now diving into that just a little bit more. So now you're saying, okay, realize that, there's gap or need in the marketplace. Hey, totally agree. When you're a startup or a small business, every penny counts. While it would be awesome if you had the ability to have a full-time CFO, full-time CMO, full-time COO, and all those things, a lot of times when you're getting started, one, you may not actually need full-time, and two, you typically can't afford it, but you still need some of those services. So you realize that there was kind of that gap or that need out in the marketplace. Now, how did you go about, from that realization, there's always a gap or a chasm between, yeah, I see that this is a shortcoming in the marketplace or something that I might be able to address, versus now, how do I actually go about building a company to address that concern? So walk us through kind of, once you had that realization, how did you get the business going, or how did you get it or get things started?
Yeah, well, first, I guess you got to come up with a business name. You got to search, and that may be even where people need to reach out to you and make sure they're not violating on anybody's intellectual property with their, creating their logos or business names and different things. But then you register those businesses, you register the business names, register all your DBAs, go ahead and get a website up and running, and create an outreach plan too, to how to grow and scale business. So, I used LinkedIn specifically with some automation tools to reach out and do quite a bit of communication with CEOs and other business leaders. And then yeah, and then you start to also rely on, it goes back to the general principles of marketing of just like word of mouth and reputation building and different things like this. And then from there, one thing leads to another. Actually going on podcasts is another SEO strategy. And so, and you may get a couple clients there. So it's really just building the foundational blocks of a business, of a digital business, virtual business, and then offering ways to be seen and obtain exposure.
No, makes sense. And so now, so you come up, and so what did, or just walk through, you said one of the first things most people do is they try, come up with the name, or what is the business going to be called? So did you start out with the name of the business as it is today, or kind of what were some of the names you tossed around, or kind of any evolution or iteration there?
Well, I guess I started by looking at what digital assets are available. So beyond like what's legally available, what URLs are available, what social media handles are available, what and kind of then going backwards into what's registered with the state of California or anywhere else, and who are there any. So I worked at what is just digitally available and then go backwards.
So you said, okay, and so you do that, you work it backwards. Now, did you come, or we're going back to the question, which is, so once you went through that exercise, did you land on the name of the current business, or what? Yeah. Okay, so that was what you landed on.
It was lucky this time. I can tell you, and I'm sure you've seen with your advising of people that in the past, and actually with helping some of those startups launch products and things, where we thought we had a name, we file I guess trademark and things, and we find out that we actually can't have that, and we've already started to create a lot of assets, content, printing on products and different things. And so I understand that sometimes it can be more simple and lucky than others. But for us, it was pretty simple and lucky on this one. So
that's awesome. Yeah. It's always, sometimes it's always a hard conversation. Sometimes people say, I got this great name and I really like it, and I think it matches us perfectly. And then we go out and we look at it and we say, well, it's a great name. Somebody else already came up with it. So great that as you were coming up with that and figuring out how to name the company and what that would look like, that was available. So now, so you get started, you come up with the name, get the business kind of going, or figure out a little bit of the target market. And now you go kind of hit the streets, or actually start to work to generate clients, bring them on, and get that ball rolling. Now, remind me, at this time, did you make the leap full time, or was it kind of a transition to doing this full time, or is it still part time, or kind of walk us through that just a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's full time. Initially it's coming off of some of those interim contracts prior. Those were basically full-time contracts, and then I went into more of the fractionalized contracts where you're doing anywhere from 1 to 10 hours a week with any one client. And I picked up another handful of clients, have had some success with them, some very, I guess, satisfied clients with what we've done. We launched a video content creation course online with somebody. We've done a rental home, vacation rental home business launch. We've also launched a e-commerce business. Actually, the e-commerce business of like e-commerce retail has been a big time consumption, and specifically on like Amazon and things. But what this is that's meeting another need of the changing needs, because basically what e-commerce is meeting is finding basically a convenience that consumers are willing to pay for. And by categorizing like clothing and different items, that if they go to any one store, they may or may not find that one item in that store in that size or that color option. So this is common sense, but what I'm saying is like the cataloging of online shopping is a convenience in itself. that you're meeting the need, and then when the shipment comes, that it's not as cataloged when you go into a store location. So spending a lot of time on that, and I've helped one of the big management consulting firms actually, advising on some CMO strategy plans that they're rolling out, some different research and paperworks on, and advising of their clients. So yeah, I've stayed busy with helping a handful of clients, and there's others as well. So.
No, that's awesome. So now kind of jumping back just a little bit. So now you go through this, you say, okay, got it going, doing it full time, starting to bring on clients. So was it kind of one where it was just a meteoric rise to the top and money was raining down from the skies and you had more money than you knew what to do with? Was it teetering on the bank or verge of bankruptcy and never knowing where the next paycheck is going to come from, or somewhere in the middle? Kind of walk us through as it progressed forward. How did that go?
Yeah, I would say somewhere in the middle. Where it's I was never in a situation where there wasn't enough contracts to not fulfill a full-time, or I guess a stable situation. But now it's all about how do you scale this? How do you grow this? And I've brought on a couple different employees, working on some different process improvement, and just trying to figure out ways to now scale and improve it. And that's where hopefully the money starts raining, that you're talking about. And but yeah, I've been in the past, have started other companies and things where it is more of the prior that you mentioned. But in this situation, I think, I don't know if it's just because of experience or also going into it with already a few contracts kind of wrapping up or in place. It was a smoother transition. So.
No, that's awesome. It's always great to hit the ground running and have some of that previous experience. And it's always interesting, sometimes it's preparation as you work with some of those companies or associated with them that do teeter on or have struggles in that. You can learn a lot from them, and it prepares you for the businesses present to be able to hit that more running and be able to or have it be successful. So that sounds like it was a great launch and a great start. So now how long is so started the business around the COVID timeframe, or how long has the business been how long you've been doing the fractional CFO services and been in business full time?
Yeah, so February 2020. So if you remember, we did have a big spike in COVID in January 2022, and so yeah, I guess you could consider it still during the COVID time. Launched it coming out of the tail end of COVID, and then have been staying busy since. So we're filming this right now in September 2023. So it's been what is that, a year, 7 months, something like that. And yeah, going well. Like I said, projections of heading in the right direction. So I mean the growth that the charts are showing of revenue, just that it's growing month over month. So that's heading in the right direction, and just hope to keep that going, because again, I think right now we're in a time of changing economy and changing, with the interest rates high, people pulling back on their spending. You're starting to feel that a little bit, especially hitting that e-commerce business I mentioned, where right now we're having the same amount of sales, but more in inventory to achieve the same amount of sales, which is not good. And so just trying to figure out ways to adjust with the changing economy. I think we're in a world where things change faster than ever, so you just have to stay on your toes.
Nope, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that if you're staying on your toes is what can separate success versus or not evolving or going under. And so I think that's great that you're taking that approach, and sounds like it's worked out well. So with that, now as we're kind of reaching the towards the end of the podcast, I always like to wrap up each episode with one question. So with that, the question that I ask at the end of this episode is, if you were to go back to the early days of the business and I understand it's still an earlier business, but early days of the business and just getting started, what would be the one decision you would make differently?
Well, I think for me, looking, because this has been a very international based launch a little bit. So, like I mentioned, there was a factory in China, a company in India, and understanding that whatever you think is going to be the expectation when you're working across cultures, be prepared for different situations or different ways of doing things than you've ever been maybe exposed to in the past. So ultimately, I would just say, like, if you're doing business internationally, you need to be very much in control of where the contracted money is being stored. So ideally, you want to have the funds already in the United States in a U.S. bank account. I'm not saying in your own control or anything, but in the U.S. bank account or in a escrow account or something of sorts, because it's a lot harder to go. It's a lot harder to do things internationally than just doing them domestically, and just understanding that is probably the biggest thing I've picked up. And there's probably a whole episode you could dive into that kind of talk on, but I'm just saying you want to have local access to funds if you're going to be working internationally. So,
nope, makes perfect sense, and that's a great answer to learn from. So awesome. Well, now as we get to, or as we do wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, so connect with me on LinkedIn, Branden. It's notice the spelling difference, Branden, and then Cobb, or look us up at marketingexec.us. That's the business, marketing exec. Marketingexec.us is the website, and would love to have a chat with you, help you out for as much or as little time as needed. That's the beauty of the fractional work. So thanks for having me on, Devin. Have appreciated all the times we've chatted. And also, if you haven't already listened to previous episodes that I've done with Devin, maybe go back and listen to those as well, because there's probably a little bit of insights in those ones also.
Awesome. We'll definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again, Branden, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners are out there, if you can help us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Really helps us to reach out and help those other businesses as well. And on that note, if you ever need help along your journey with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Branden, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you very much.